I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer. Oh, excuse me. And this is episode, 14, right at the end of the year, 2023. And I think today is December 30th, yeah. And I come back and get one more episode in this year and cover how things are going to start for next year. And so yeah, let's see. Oh, and let's get the preliminaries out of the way. Like and subscribe if you find this enjoyable or find something interesting or anything. And also you can find me on Ravelry as the Yarn Randomizer and on Instagram as the original Anna Sender. All of that information is down below. So you can look at that for anything I post in here. I'll have thorough notes down below in the show notes and everything. And I'm trying to think. Oh yes, and the other thing is Yarn Randomizer. Why that? It's because for the most part I pick my yarns at random from my stash. I have my husband pull chips out of a bucket, sort of like a lottery, and I have to work with what gets pulled and everything. So it just makes it kind of more interesting and more of a challenge, and it does keep yarns from staying in the stash like forever. When I first started doing this, I ended up using up a lot of yarns that were very old in my stash, and so I don't have any, I think, older than, maybe there are a few older than 2010, but for the most part they're significantly newer. And that's it. So I think we'll get right down to it. Okay, what I'm wearing. All right, so as the title of the episode might suggest, I'm going to be talking about the Ranunculus, but this is the one I made a few years, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And it was the first time I made a Ranunculus, and it was just such a fun knit. And it's such a nice little sweater. Now this one has short sleeves and it's only about 10 inches long. It's somewhat cropped. And I think you can kind of see that. It's not bad. Yeah, let's see. But I was able to knit it in like a week. And so, this one is made out of, it was just 2 skeins of sport that I had. It was just 600 yards. And this is how much sweater I was able to get from that. I knit it on size 10.5 needles for the main part of it. I did the tubular cast on, which is my preference for a neck that's less open. And you can see it's not like it's tight or anything, but I like this, the way this neck sits and everything. And I didn't do their option for the short sleeves. I did, I think, a couple of rows and then just went to ribbing. And that all those details are in the project, which I'll link below. And I did end up doing some helical knitting because the 2 skeins were a little different from each other. And so I think that helped kind of smooth the transition a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit of what's going on there, but overall the effect is really nice. And so I'd really, if you go look at the Ranunculus pattern, I know you might see those initial images and go like, it's not for me. But I really encourage you to try it. And there's a couple other folks that do some really great examples of Ranunculus sweaters. Selma from Little Big Knits, and also Knitting Traditions. I'm trying to remember her first name, but both of them have done some really beautiful Ranunculus sweaters and were part of the reason, that were the primary reason I was willing to take a chance on it and stuff. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. So that's what I'm wearing. Now, as far as finished objects, one of them is gone. I did finish all my Christmas knits and got them all sent off in time. And so my last finished object for Christmas was the Brio Clava, which I'll put up somewhere for my stepson, and it turned out great. And so I really enjoy the pattern. It's a really nice pattern, and I like the fuzzy and smooth yarn together, and the way the Brio Clava fits and everything is just a really, and I thought it was just a fun little knit to put together. It did not take that long. I have not done a ton of brioche. I think I've knit maybe one brioche project before this. I think it was a cowl, and that's it. So these are the only brioche I've done since then, and I did have to refigure out how to fix it when I mess it up and everything. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty straightforward. If you're an experienced brioche knitter, these won't be a problem at all. I don't know if they're the best way to learn. There's probably something simpler, you know, a cowl or something with no increases and decreases. It might be a better way to learn it, since it's a two-color. But I won't go on about that. Just have the picture and know that it got to its recipient, and at some point I'll get some pictures of the person wearing it to post in the project, and I'll have that there. Now I think the next thing that I finished was my Van Dyke socks, and these are my worsted weight socks. Now this is a pattern by Wendy Johnson. It's a toe-up worsted weight sock, and normally it has a lace on the top. It's a really nice lace and everything. I just wanted to do these plain, and you can see that these are very thick. You can see how it's kind of a little folded up there. There's a little slack because these are large stitch sock blockers. I probably should have an extra large sock blocker for the size of the shoe. I wear a size 11 in women's shoes, and so these things fit perfectly. And I really love these socks, and they're ridiculous. Of course, the colors are ridiculous. I was just throwing in scraps, and I had some scraps that were so short they could only do 5 rounds in the sock, so I could just kind of toss those in wherever, and then use some of the larger scraps as these kind of bracketing colors, and then just kind of went random up from this point. But I love them, and they fit really well. There's a picture of it on my foot in the pattern page, and some of the things I like about this is, again, toe up. I love a toe up sock, and because you can really kind of see and get it to exactly the length you need. And then this has this really simple Flegel heel. So if you like short row heels, but you need the ease that a gusseted sock will get you, this is a great compromise. And so it works very well and is very tidy. And I really like it because the short rows look the same on each side and stuff. Now I didn't do anything fancy here as far as trying to do jogless stripes. I figured these would just be around the house socks. And again, part of the reason why the color coordination isn't particularly polished either. But they're worsted knit on size, for me, a size 3 needle. So I think the pattern calls for 2.5. So you get a very dense, stiff fabric. And so these are great around the house socks. I think it's from Wendy Johnson's Socks from the Toe Up, and it might be in another one of her books as well, but I really recommend her pattern. She does a great job with the toe up sock patterns, and I've been so happy with the results. Anytime I've worsted, I want to turn into socks, this will be what I go to. The sun is actually coming out. I can't believe it. I hope this doesn't wash things out too much here, but we'll see. I don't think we've seen the sun for like a week and a half or something. All right, so that's that object. Now, the other object that I sort of finished, it's not quite finished, is my little cat Stuffy. And so, let me bring my notes back. So I finished my cat Stuffy. Now, one of the issues is I basically ran out of yarn. I used up every bit of this leftover yarn in this project. And so the arms would have been, you know, more the same length of the legs, but ended up a little short. I don't think the cats will mind. And then I need to sew on. I'm gonna take some other yarn of a different color, probably a bright color, and sew on a little cat face on this little stuffy, and then send it off to my sons so that their cats can have it to play with. And this is just a little self-drafted pattern. All the details are in the project, and it's really straightforward. The only thing that might be unusual is the way I bind the layers together, but I've made a video that shows how I did that. And for the arms, I just picked them up. The main mistake I made with the arms was I picked up in a 1-to-1 ratio the number of stitches on the arms through the stitches on the side. I should have spaced those out a little further so they don't pull in so much here. And I should know better than that. The rows, there's always more rows than there are. The rows are smaller than the actual stitch width. And so you should, like I should have picked up like 2 and then skipped 1 or something like that. Something like that would have produced a better result. And I'll know better if I do this again. But again, it's for cats, so they won't mind and everything. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. And I had that project on my needles for a long time. I could have got it done pretty quick, but it was just one of those things I would pick up every once in a while and work on. But it's ready to go now. So that's all the finished. So 3 finished objects, and now on to works in progress. Now, since Christmas, I think I recorded just shortly before Christmas last time, or no, I guess it was a week before Christmas. I was still working on that hat, that's right. And since Christmas, I did, finish these, but my main focus the past week has been with doing a Christmas cast on, Christmas Eve cast on. And then I wanted to cast on a couple of items that were in my queue, because my policy at the end of the year for any items that are still sitting on my queue that were from my random choices, those get pulled off the queue and put back into the stash. And then they won't come up again unless they get picked by the randomizer. And there were a couple of things I didn't want to go back in the stash. And so I went ahead and started those. So I had a little bit of cast on itis this past week, but I've had a lot of fun doing it. And also getting set with new picks for next year also kind of jazzed up my knitting mojo as well. So what have I been making progress on? So one of the first things I want to pull up is my Christmas Eve cast on, and it is another Ranunculus. All right, so you can see it there. And so I'm knitting it exactly the same, well, basically to start with the same size. I think it's the 5th size in the pattern, and same needle size. I used 10.5 on this. I did the tubular cast on here again, so it'll be pretty much the same type of neck and everything. But I'm already finished with the yoke, and now I'm on to the body. And what I'm going to do is I've got 2 skeins of fingering, and this was fingering from Hypnotic Yarns. It was their Christmas Eve cast on box that I got, and the box is really cool. You can see pictures of it in the project, but you could pick to have 1 to 10 skeins of the yarn that she was providing for the Christmas Eve cast on. I picked 2 because I thought it would be enough to knit a Ranunculus, because I have knit large needle sweaters like this with just 2 skeins of yarn before, and it'd be, was it 800? This was 600, so I figured a little over, between 800 and 900 would be more than enough to make another one. But as you can see, I absolutely think it's coming out just fantastic. I love this combination of this mohair and this Christmas Eve cast on yarn. So this yarn, you can see it here, is kind of a light color with lots and lots of speckles, and a lot of different color speckles, but a lot of the bright pink speckles. And I picked out this color this is Garn Studio drops silk mohair in pink. They just call this color pink. And I think it just ended up being the perfect combination. Oh, there goes the sun going away again. And so, yeah, so it's just really absolutely lovely. And I plan to make some good progress on this pretty quickly. At this point in time, I've got a few other projects that I was ignoring while I was doing my Christmas this past week that I'll pick up again. But I've got, I think, 3 sweaters that are close, 2 that just need sleeves, and this one where I'll finish the body pretty quick and then do the sleeves as well. So I should have a lot, good number of sweaters kind of getting off the needles in pretty rapid succession at the beginning of the year. So that'll be exciting. But yeah, I can't recommend this pattern enough. It is just like, I posted on Instagram, it's like a magic trick working on this pattern. It just turns out so nice. So yeah, so that's my Christmas Eve cast on, my Ranunculus. Now, the other ones that I cast on, this is my board that I hang things in progress on in their bags. And so one of the other projects I cast on was this pair of mitts. Now as far as pronouncing the name of these, tar scale mitts. And that name of the mitts is the name for the crosshatch pattern that's done in the, let me bring one of these out. I'm knitting them 2 at a time because I'm using leftovers. I'm trying to use the leftovers in an equal way between the 2 mitts. So let me see if I can detangle this a little bit. All right. Because I basically, there we go. Okay, now, let me put these, I think I'll put this one in front here. So you can see I'm just on the cuffs right now, and here's this crosshatch stitch. Oh, I can put it out there. Oh, I don't know how well it'll show in the sun, but it's a neat stitch. It's a, what you do is you slip one, and then I think it's knit 2 together, yarn over, and then pass the slip stitch over the knit 2 together and the yarn over to produce this crosshatch stitch. And it produces a really nice textured result. And so I'll continue making progress on these, but I'm going to be doing these 2 at a time on 2 separate sets of circular needles and get these done sometime early next year. But I didn't want this pattern choice to end up coming off my queue, and so I just wanted to get it started. And it gives me a small project. I think it's one of the only small projects I have on the needles right now that can travel with me easily. And so this is my small portable knitting for right now. And so those are turning out really nice. I really like the pattern, and the texture is really pretty. And I'll be switching to a lighter color yarn, and I'll show that. Actually, let me grab that right now so you can see. The yarn color I'll be switching to for the main part of the hand is this leftover junk yarn in Tokmatone, I think it, no, I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but really neat color where the blue in the cuffs will pick up on this blue that's in the yarn. And so those should end up really nice. And then finally, my other cast on from Cast On Itis this past week was I have a Ravello sweater that was in my queue using a couple of different colors, and what I wanted to do was get that started because the color combination was such that I really wanted to get it started. Actually, I'm going to grab the 2 other colors for that. I'm back. So I started the Ravello, and I finished all the short rows, and I'm on to the Raglin increases that are going all the way around now. And it's in this crazy bright fluorescent color. And so now the thing is, so I'm using this, and this is a pair of, was it Mandy's Making has these share a pair sock sets where you get two, it's 4 50-gram skeins, 2 of one color, 2 of another color. And the idea is you can share a pair with a friend and knit a pair of socks in matching colors and stuff. But I had the share a pair in this colorway called Little Monsters, and I wanted to use it all for myself. I have shared a pair before, but I wanted to use this all for myself. So here is the other color that'll be the stripes as I work down the Ravello sweater. And then on the body, for the body, I'll be using this purple from Lorna's Laces, which goes just so well with this other color. And so this one will tie the 2 colors together. Now what I did for that pattern was I did a whole spreadsheet where I calculated how many stitches there were in every color. And I kind of messed around with where the stripes were and how the yarn was used in order to divide the usage of the yarn into even thirds. So I'd use a third of the stitches would be in each color. And I'll link that. That's linked in my, oh, I think I need to add the link to my project. I'll link that there. But the idea was to use equal amounts of each yarn and try to use as much of them as possible. The big change that I made in the pattern was on the sleeve. Normally you have your starting color and then you start having some stripes in one of the contrast colors. And then as you go down the sleeve, you go back to the color you started with on the bottom part of the sleeves. Well, instead of doing that, for mine, in order to use similar amounts of yarn, I switch, after a certain number of stripes, just switch to the second color down the rest of the sleeve. Whoop. Oh. And sorry, knocked the yarn down, and Odo's, your little alarm there, Odo. And so it will use up, it'll be an interesting difference in how I do the pattern, but I've got that all calculated out in my spreadsheet, so you can see it there. The sun's got retreated again. Now it's behind the clouds, and now it's coming back out. We'll see how washed out this gets. Okay, so that's my Ravello. So, you know, just at the beginnings, but my goodness, look at that color. That's gonna be, I'm so excited about it. All right, so those are all my works in progress. And then I think, oh, did my computer go to sleep? Wake up. There we go. So the next thing would be getting on to my knitting plan. So I did my Christmas Eve cast on, the other Ranunculus, and then for New Year's Day, for the next year, I have a plan to work on a slip extravaganza blanket, the biggest version that you can make. I want it for my guest bedroom to put on the bed that's in there. And so I picked out some colors and I did a full calculation in a spreadsheet. You'll find that I like to do those, so I have a lot of those around, that counts the total number of stitches in the entire project. And so what I did was I calculated that out, divided it over 366 days. And so I need to do, it's a little, 537 to 538 stitches a day, which when you initially say it might sound like a lot, but if you think about it as, you know, it's like 8 to 9 rows on a sock, for example, and that does not sound like that much at all. So I think it's a really doable project, and I brought back out my colors that I'll be using for that. So, see, I think I'll hold them up like that. So I got these from Finished Knits. This is their Lancava Manio. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but those will be the colors that'll go. And I'll be starting with this coffee color over here. I think this is cherry, might be cotton candy or something, and then this this white color. But these will be the colors for the blanket, and I'm totally excited about that. So I will be starting that, and I'll show updates on it each time. In my spreadsheet, I actually show dates along the side, kind of goals for each month, where I should end up at the end of each month. And so it's interesting because I think by mid-July you're finished with all the sections except for that outer edge section, and then that outer edge section takes the rest of the year. It's kind of funny. All right, so that's my knitting plans, and then we'll go through acquisitions, a few acquisitions. And so, whoop, let me lean forward and grab this. So I think I was showing everybody that I had a craft vent from Jimmy Bean's Wool that had a whole bunch of small kind of mini skeins from 20 to 50 yards each. And I accumulated all of those, and that added up to about, I think it was 1,050, something around 1,050 yards of yarn. So now I'm trying to decide what to do with this. Now, as it turns out, see this green and this red? I have a full skein of each of those colors in my stash, along with one that is a combination of red and green out of the same yarn. So I'm really seriously considering doing something substantial, combining those two skeins with this. And I was thinking maybe a big shawl, maybe a sweater, but after I saw Selma knits her poncho, I was thinking that might be the perfect compromise, something that can be real Christmassy with these colors, and something that I can toss on for the holidays, you know, specific to Christmas and everything. So I think that's what I'm going to do with this. So we'll see when it comes up. So this is going into the stash, and it's got a number assigned to it. So we'll see if it comes up this year or not. All right. So now that's that. Now my other acquisitions, one of my favorite places to go visit to look for sale yarn is Wool Warehouse. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I just happened to run into Wool Warehouse when I was trying to find mohair for a good deal, mohair silk for a good deal. And I found one time they had drops mohair silk on sale for a really good price. And so that was the case again. You know, from time to time that comes up. Now, the last time I visited there, they had the brushed alpaca on sale. And I was so excited about the two Brio Clavas that I made that I wanted to make one for me and one for my husband. So here's the color combination I picked out for me. And so this, I think, is a very light, very pale blue-gray here in the brushed alpaca silk. And then they also had the Lima on sale, which is their DK. And I believe that's, let's see, the mixture of that is, well, I'll figure it out eventually. This is a combination of wool and alpaca. And, oh yeah, 65% wool, 35% alpaca. And so I thought, this will make a nice combination for me, this kind of almost a grayish blue and this black. And then for my husband, who is a big fan of green, I picked out these two different colors of green. And did I name it? Let's see, this is a, yeah, I think one of these is a moss green. I've got all the, I'll have all the details below. I think this is the moss, and then this is a green that came in the Lima here, color 705, very descriptive. But I thought this would be a fun combination for my husband. So those will go into the queue, or not into the queue, they'll go into the stash. Now, there's a chance that when Christmas comes around gets close for 2024, this might be something I break out deliberately to make that balaclava for my husband, the Brio Clava. So those were the two different combinations I picked up for the Brio Clava. And then they also had this Vivacious DK from Fyberspates on sale. And I really loved this color. And I thought this was another possibility for a poncho. So I picked up a few skeins of this to add to my stash for that. And then finally, the Fyberseed, another place I really like to shop for yarn from, was having a making room sale or something along those lines right after Christmas, starting December 26th. And so I took a look at what they had available, and I picked out a couple of things. So one was this, I picked this all worsted. This is all worsted. Now they have DK and fingering as well, but I wanted to pick up some heavier yarn. And so they had this one skein of French quarter, which is a Mardi Gras inspired yarn. And so I thought this would make a really nice hat or something along those lines. So that's when I picked out. My stepson and his wife lived in New Orleans for a while, working for Habitat for Humanity, and my husband has been down there and he really loved it. We do a Fat Tuesday each year where I make beignets and po' boy fish sandwiches and stuff, so we'll be doing that again this year as well. but yeah, so I really just like those colors. And then I always like to pick up a sweater quantity every once in a while, and so they had a color called, this one's called One Foggy Christmas Eve. So I think you can see this. I kind of looked through people's projects and looked at some projects made out of this yarn, and I really liked the look of it, and so I actually got 6 skeins of this worsted. Now, the nice thing about this, you need to know about this worsted, for one thing, the neat thing about the Fyberseed is it's all sourced and spun in the United States, so it's a 100% US made yarn, and the worsted skeins are 136 grams, 250 yards. So it's a really nice, substantial yarn. In their solid colors, they really show great stitch definition. And I'm thinking with this sprinkly one that I could still get away with doing a texture pattern and have it show up really well. So we'll see. So those are my acquisitions, and I think, oh yeah, we're up to the reboot of the yarn randomizer. So I explained last episode that what I do is I kind of reboot. I take the stuff out of my queue, I regenerate my spreadsheet, assign the numbers, and make sure I have all the numbers, and then put that all back into my number bucket. And then I had my husband make a couple of picks for starting the year. Now I will, I have to wait a couple of days, but I can start casting these on January 1st and start my projects, although I think I have a few I need to kind of wrap up first. But, okay, so the yarn randomizer picks. So the first one, ta-da, so exciting. Pick number 1 for 2024 is just this absolutely stunning Gentry Gray in Croy socks. And so I only have 1 skein of this. And so typically I've used this for heels and toes and that kind of stuff. And that's what's going to happen again. So I looked, and the only other full skeins of Croy that I have are these Dad's Jacquard. And so you can see these really bright, great colors. These kind of, there's avocado kind of green in there, these different pinks and reds and some gray, some kind of stuff that'll look like, almost like Fair Isle in these speckled gray sections. And so what I'm going to do is I will use this for I'll figure out if I want to do just cuffs and toes, or if I want to put in the heels too, and then I'm going to use the Dad's Jacquard and stuff for those socks. So, and they'll be vanilla socks. I will probably use my favorite sock pattern, the Ringwood socks. It's a texture pattern, but I'll knit it vanilla, just using the same kind of framework as the pattern. So that is going to be Yarn Randomizer pick number 1 for 2024, and I'm really excited to cast on these socks. That'll be fun. All right, now the second choice, I've got it right here. So we get to talk about the fiber seed again. So I have this skein, this single skein of worsted in my stash from the fiber seed. And it's this really beautiful, I think it's, yeah, neon lights. And so it's like a half black and half kind of this rainbow colors, and you can see that there. Really beautiful yarn. Now, I did knit a hat out of a very similar yarn for my oldest son for Christmas, which I showed in a previous episode, or maybe 2 episodes back. And so I didn't want to knit another hat with this, although it would come out really cool for sure. And so I wanted to try something else. And so I found the most plain Jane cowl, basically some ribbing, some stockinette, and some more ribbing. And what I want to do is use up every bit of this skein to make the cowl as tall as possible. So that's my plan for this one. Now did I put the name of that pattern down? Sugar Plum Cowl. Yeah, the Sugar Plum Cowl. It's a free pattern, and that's what I plan to do with this full skein. I'll use this full skein for that. And so that's Yarn Randomizer pick number 2. And I'm really excited about casting this one on too. It's so fun to see what gets pulled out of the stash. But so far, no sweater quantities have been picked. So those are the first 2 Yarn Randomizer picks for the year, and hopefully I'll get a chance. I'll finish some stuff up and cast those on before the next episode, and we'll see how those start looking. Let's see, finally, a note about stash management. Now, I think I talked about in the previous episode, normally I can try to wrangle my stash and keep it from getting too big. But this past year was kind of a challenging year and everything. And so I decided to give myself a buy in more ways than one buy year, maybe more in the BUY term than the BYE term. And so I'm just forgiving myself, doing some self-care and saying everything I have is just in my stash and part of the randomizer at the end of this year. But starting next year, it's back to what I did in the previous. So in 2022, my policy was that I had to earn the ability to buy more yarn. And so the idea is I do it by yardage. So for example, these are 250 yards each. If I use them in a project, once I get that project off the needles, I get that amount of budget. Basically, you can say like half the amount. So this would be 250, it would be 500 yards. Well, that would let me buy that divided by 2. That gives me 250 yards of yarn I can buy to put in my stash. So I'm free to buy yarn, but I either have to cover it with projects I've already completed, and I'll track that from the beginning of the year with the yardage I've used up, or I have to cover it by destashing. And there are specific rules around the destashing. And so if I have to destash to cover a purchase, I have to start with at least a whole skein of yarn. I can't just pick a bunch of leftovers to cover my my purchase. It has to be a full skein of yarn, at least one. Then I can use some leftovers to kind of cover what's left. But again, only one leftover can be used as part of a destash to cover a purchase. Then I have to start back on the whole skeins again. And so the idea is to be kind of to keep the stash kind of condensing if I purchase more yarn. So the idea at the end of the year, my stash will either go down from usage, or if I buy yarn, it'll go down also from, it could potentially be destashing that also reduces it. One way or the other, the stash will be reduced. And so that's going to be my rules for 2024. I always, when people talk about going on, well, I'm not buying any more yarn, and I always feel like that's not realistic, and it's not fun. because sometimes you'll see that like incredible yarn, you're like, ooh. And as far as I can tell, most people go ahead and buy it anyway. But this way, I kind of have to pay the piper. When I do buy yarn, I'll have to potentially destash if I haven't earned that yardage yet. So that's my plan. That's my New Year's resolution for 2024. And I did it for all of 2022, so I know I can do it. And you know, it may be that I bring that destash. If I do destashing this year, I'll just bring it to the channel and would be happy to send it out to folks and that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that turns out. But starting with a clean slate, though. I hope everybody had really a fantastic holiday. I hope you have a fantastic, you'll have already had your New Year's Eve by now. So I hope your Christmas and your New Year's or Kwanzaa or whatever, or even Festivus was absolutely delightful, and that you had some wonderful folks to spend the time with and everything. I know I did. I had a great Christmas, and I hope to see you back soon. I'll get another episode out in a couple of weeks, and I have a few other things I want to get out there too. But yeah, other than that, please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And it's funny, it'll probably just keep coming anyway, but I do appreciate it if folks, I hope it's some folks are enjoying it out there. But yeah, in the meantime, enjoy your knits.